So ASAP Rocky, for what it's worth, beat the case. From what I understand, it was on some technicality. And I'm not mad at his team, because it's almost like, hey, whoever you have that's in your corner, bring them to court. You know, when Riri showed up in the court, it was like, oh, we got billions of dollars that are in support of this man. Now, you know in your heart of hearts, if you was wrong, you was wrong. That's between you and the Almighty. But I will say this, based on the case, it had its day in court, and you beat the case, salute. In the same vein of trying to mess with people's top or trying to play with people's name, let me tell you one name that was messed with and they FAFO'd. That's none other than Jay Hoffa, Sean Carter, The Rock. I'm talking about Jay-Z. He had his day in court also, or did he? See, sometimes you got to understand when you're messing with people whose pockets are deep, right? Or have the wherewithal to see about their legal business, you got to understand, he said, I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to learn you today. And excuse my broken English, but for lack of a better word, Jay-Z said, I'm going to learn you today that you don't mess with me. You don't mess with my family. You don't mess with my wife. You don't mess with the integrity of the Carter's name, period. And his legal team was about that business. So obviously this dude who went after Jay-Z, trying to tie him into some of this Diddy case, right? Two separate issues, but Jay-Z said, I'm gonna let you know that this ain't what you want, right? So whatever the case may be, I don't want to get into details, right? Because from my source to yours, it's alleged. But as I understand, he beat the case, and not only that, taught the ambulance chaser a strong lesson. You know, I got to say this because it's on the tip of my tongue, and some people may say, hey, you're rocking with her, you share her opinions. No, sometimes it's just quite entertaining and flattering to know that someone has the heart of a lion, that someone has the courage of someone who's 10 foot tall, and will SOB at any given cost, whether the cameras are rolling, whether they're doing it on their personal devices to share on social platforms, or whether they're doing it on a well-known programming channel. I'm talking about MSNBC and what they did with Joy Reid. Her last episode was aired either yesterday or today upon the edit of this pod. And I will say that you will no longer see Joy Reid on MSNBC. You guys know what it is. If you look at the makeup of the panel of MSNBC, it fits into this cliche or this hashtag that everybody's doing, calling diversity, equity, and inclusion. As hires, right? As you put it, you're going off merit base. But here are people who are bona fide, qualified, and know their position in their role. It just becomes a point, not just today, but as history would tell, that it's no secret that those of Black American have to oversell themselves and then play the game in tightrope so that these things don't happen. And guess where we are? Ta-da! So I got to ask those again, and I'm talking to you, Black MAGA. Did this align with your short and long-term goals? How's that working out for you? I got one word for you guys, or one thing to put your scope on, and that is November the 3rd, 2026. Midterms. I think it's November the 3rd, right? But nonetheless, midterm elections are only 2 years away, or 1 year away, if you will, right? So I will say this, start local. You guys know what it is. Hey guys, we're in the age of cancel culture, judged by the court of public opinion, and I'll be careful with my words, and I'm just going to give it to you right now like a TI is, trigger warning today. But if I drop a noun, an adjective, a pronoun, or even an expletive today, it's for descriptive matters and entertainment purposes only. Because some of us have not, we've had it up to here. right? And sometimes you just got to be honest about the things that are in front of you. Before I get to the business at hand, let me just shout out an individual, a trailblazer. You guys know him as the Podfather, but I have the utmost regard for this man and what he's accomplished in a 10-year span. I have the utmost respect of this man to say that, hey, it's now time that I move on and do something else. Some of you know that as reinventing yourself. Someone who's been known in the public eye to have a demise or a downfall, but yet pick himself up by the collar and say, you got to keep going. And that's self-talk. One that when he got thick in the mud, got help, seeked out help, was public with it. And some of you still decide to try and kill the man or crucify him verbally for what you saw as a court of public opinion. But I'm talking about none other than the man, the myth, and I've said this before already, but the legend, the Podfather, Joe Budden. Joe Budden has reached 10 years in a field that's practically new. It's practically a reinvention of what it is to be a conglomerate, a company, your own network, if you will. I'll never forget when Steve Harvey was ridiculed by his teacher when she asked him to write down on a sheet of paper what you want to be when you grow up. And little Steve, as he was in class, wrote down, I want to be on TV. And his teacher called him stupid, and I'm paraphrasing, but some demeaning words that a teacher should not say to a little kid. And not only that, sent them home. And his mom says, oh, you're going to get it when your dad comes home. And when his dad came home, he said, what's wrong with that? If you have a dream and you believe it, you can achieve it. But getting back to Joe Budden, the man does have an actual network called the Joe Budden Network. He has a podcast with an extremely amazing and quite entertaining crew called the Joe Budden Podcast. Joe sits along the sides of Ish, Ice, also known as Freeze. You got the man Parks from the engineering perspective. You got Imani, who sometimes pop in and gives commentary, and some of the young boys in the back, as they call them, that helps with the editing and the on-site things and some of the engineering that you see and don't see, what it takes to run these lights and camera and come up with content. I mean, he has a team, obviously, and these guys are putting in work. And the thing is, they're his friends. And when they say that it's hard to have family and friends to work with you, he's proving that to be wrong. These are some of his mans in them. Later on in the edition, he brought in Queen's Flip, who's known to bring the ruckus. But at first, I'll be honest, I had a little reserve about it. But the man brings a quite interesting perspective to the podcast. And you can actually see the maturation, as he put it, under the tutelage of Joe Budden. Then he brought in the beautiful, as you guys know her, from the XXL magazine. You know her from the Source magazine. And as they like to say, you've seen her on several prison walls out there. Haven't been to prison, but if you guys get it, you get it. But none other than the beautiful Melissa Ford. And then they had a late edition. Just because it's okay to expand, it's okay to do different. It's okay to add ammo to the weaponry. He brought in Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. So now you have these interesting takes, and I'll be honest, there are grand opening, grand closings on this thing called, podcast, including myself. This is taxing. And some of you may say, and I'll be honest with you, everybody who watched my podcast, this is the conversation. And if you know, you know. For those in the creative content space, if you know, you know. For those of you that are influencers on social media, if you know, you know. But this is what I get. You know who you ought to interview? You know what you ought to do? You know what would be good for your pod? And I'm all for that. But you got to understand that what Joe Budden has done, and several others. I just want to call out Joe Budden in the form of Black History Month because he's not just in a niche of urban rap music podcast talk. No, he's top 5, top 10 of some of the heavy hitters when it comes to podcasting and sources of entertainment. You've had this guy mentioned in screen gems. You've had a mention on the big screen. You've had a mention on TV shows such as Abbott Elementary. South Park has probably even done things with him. But I will say this, for a guy to be as transparent, even with his most recent situation. And once I learned the details of that most recent situation, I said, this thing called racism exists everywhere. But in addition to that, it's always folks trying to make something that they don't know much about. But go hear from the horse's mouth itself. Please go out and support the JBN and the Joe Budden podcast when it comes to the maturation. And also, what's wrong with getting behind a good brand? Go listen to 10 minutes of it. See if you enjoy it. 10 years in the game. Shout out once again. And I think he hit his 800th episode or something like that. Listen, guys, I'm right under 50 and I'm tired. And let me just say this. When you are partnering with corporations, right? When you are consulting with firms, when you do have a skin in the game when it comes to community awareness, when you are a coach, when you are a ref, you really have to tightrope this thing. People are going to have their opinions about you. There are probably people that I know saying Dante out there is a Trump hater, or Dante out there is giving out false information, or Dante's out there doing fake news, or Dante's out there thinking he's a journalist, or whatever the case may be. No. If you go back and listen to my 0 episode, I was doing this in the space of communication, and I was doing it with my partner who's no longer here on this earth. And he spoke to me and said, Don, just because I'm not here doesn't mean you have to stop this thing that we had as a vision. So rest in peace, Nas. And I'll say this to you out there, don't die with dreams inside. Go back and listen to the 0 episode and you'll see the maturation from where I came. But I've been in the game for over a year. But I'll be honest, when you're tied to your family and all those things that I mentioned, you do have to tightrope this thing. You just can't come out throwing grenades. You just can't come out killing folks. You really have to tightrope this thing. And then when it comes to a team of what? No, it's a team of me. And when it comes to editing, pre, post, research, lights, camera, action, all things that entail with getting in front of the camera. Listen, if I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do it halfway. So I try to do it to the best of my ability, but I hope that you guys out there, when you listen to the Hedonism podcast, that you do see a form of excellence. So welcome to the show for all of you that are visiting for the first time, and peace out to all of you that this is your last time. Hey, you're not holding me at any way. I only ask that if you do enjoy it, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share it to someone. And lastly, don't be a hater. You know, we got all of these. Let me get into it, guys. And these are what I call the Donologues, right? For my first time viewers. These are the Donologues, right? So we have all these EOs, right? These executive orders that are being signed in this pamphlet. And it's pretty much made as a source of entertainment. Like I'm starting to feel like our 47th president, Donald J. Trump, feels like this is a reality show and he's getting his rocks off by doing this. Hence, today featuring Elon Musk, tomorrow featuring the Federal Bureau of Investigation, featuring the Attorney General. Like it's a show, and I got something to say about it, but just rock with me. But out of all of these orders you're rolling up about jobs, veterans, Social Security, data integrity, the Department of Defense, I can go Erykah Badu, and that's on and on. But where's the executive order that's regulating these guns that are going up in our schools and threatening and killing our babies while they're trying to get education? Oh, my bad. I was thinking about that before I said it, but I'm glad you reminded me. Thank you. You're at the Department of Education. You're going after their head also. You're just cutting heads off with no apparent reason and claiming it to be an executive order. But you guys know what we call it, a safe space. When we start to have people in our environment and when we start to do things, we want to make everything look safe, just as I lead in where we're in the court of public opinion. Folks are going to have their opinion regardless. But let me tell you something I had my opinion on most recently. So old Don Teasy, right? He had an event at the White House. And he invited some people. What kind of people, you ask? Black people.
All right, now we're here. We're at the White House. We're in the golden age. We are with Donald Trump celebrating Black History Month, baby. Here we are now. Come on, talk to them. They're not like us now. They're not like us, baby. Look at Legacy Media.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Look at Legacy Media.
Senator, yeah.
Let's go, y'all. Let's go.
Hey, Skylar.
Hey.
Where we heading?
We are heading to the White House.
Oh, yeah. Who we about to see?
President Trump.
Are you kidding me? And I got my hat here. Hopefully I'll get a signature from the boss himself. And then we also, do we have a private tour after the event?
Yeah, I think we do.
Ooh, it's going down. It's going down today. Thankful. God is good.
Yes, all the time.
All the time.
Every day.
How many fights did Will Smith get into before his mom got scared?
Ooh, good question.
Not the motherfucking. Finish this response. God is good. Amen.
I've never seen that before, ever in my life. I mean, there's never been a time that I've yelled out, God is good, and somebody didn't answer. God is good.
But why do you say all the time back?
Has chose you. He anointed you for this position. He kept you alive so you could be here today. And we prayed for that. We pray for you. We continue to pray for you. And we're thankful for your service and your sacrifice. Mr. President Donald J. Trump, honor. God bless you.
We at the White House? We back in here. We waiting on President Donald J. Trump. Let's go. Yeah. Big time. I look so good in the red.
Yes, at the White House. Now, you may be thinking, hey, in 2020, he invited a bunch of pastors and they had a seating at the table and they were talking about that. Listen, during post George Floyd, there was a lot of action that were being taken. There was a lot of people rocking the mic that should have had their mics off. Hence, Target, you made a commitment post George Floyd, being that that was in the area, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota, where you made a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion that we bought into. And a lot of the products, and I'll be honest with you, I saw a commercial the other day, and it was banger. It was a banger. It was 100% black cast. And oh, lo and behold, I saw that Target logo at the bottom talking about buy black or buy black, buy Target, whatever the case was. I'm paraphrasing. Don't hold me to it. But you guys understand what I'm saying. I'm really just podding. But there was a commercial, and I'm like, oh, that's fire. I like that. Target. Okay, so maybe you had this in the tuck, and you said maybe I'm going to launch it anyway. But let's get on back to the White House, right? Because they had a little shindiggy. Some shenanigans, if you will. Was this a standard of excellence? You be the judge.
Blacks, got something for you. Go ahead and buckle your seatbelts and hold your weaves down because you guys aren't ready for this. Had a special ceremony at the White House today for Black History Month. We know you guys love it. You love a little bit of acknowledgement. When we toss you a little bone, you just eat it right up. Bigly. So many of my blacks were in attendance today. Round of applause for my blacks. You guys think I don't have blacks anymore? You think I only have Kanye and Candace Owens? You're wrong about that. You're wrong about that. As some of you know, I've recently acquired Snoop Doggy Dogg, apparently. He's from the Dog Pound. You guys all love it. You guys have loved him for years. You've loved him for years, and now I've acquired him. I have Snoop Dogg. I have Nelly. It's getting hot in here. We're not going to take off all our clothes, though. We're going to leave a few things on. Just a couple of things. Nelly, we thank you so much for your service.
There was a person who had a fat head, a cutout, right? An enlarged photo of this man's head that was held up at the White House. And I go, oh, there's Pastor Jamal. There's Pastor Jamal, right? So I'm thinking they're honoring him or recognizing him, but let him tell it. His phone was blowing up when he heard that the fathead, right, the cutout poster board of him was at the White House. And one may think, how does this get past security with the stick and a cutout of someone? We're talking about going through security at the White House. Someone got this in. And it said something to the degree of him being a race baiter. Now, this could be because he's taken leadership and the charge of the targetfast.org. And some things that he's been saying is somewhat of that of Joy Reid, where it's no holds bar. Say what you got to say it with your chest, and stand on it. But nonetheless, he said, no, that wasn't acknowledging him. They're taking shots at him. And why is it always in Black history when those that use a megaphone and use their voice, i.e. this platform, why is it that it always comes with a consequence of a shadow ban or an attack on someone or get him out of here? He's sharing too much knowledge. History just shows that, right? So let's just look at how the White House is moving, right? With Donald J. Trump and his colleague, the co-president, or his nephew, or his brother, or his partner. I don't know. But this non-appointed bureaucrat is hanging on Donald Trump, or Donald Trump is hanging on him. You be the judge. But I want to talk about his demands for these federal workers to list their accomplishments. First of all, nutso. Like, who does that? You guys have thought it. You guys have had water cooler conversation about it, but I'm just going to say it. This is all in the works of either dictatorship or all the alignment of what kingsman and lordship looks like. Right? Talking Pompey, Caesar, Trump. I don't know. But this guy, first of all, goes out and buys Twitter, now known as X. I still call it Twitter and tweeting. But Elon Musk sent out a tweet the other day, over the weekend, out of all times, when people are R&R, resting, relaxing, and getting themselves together to recharge and get back to Monday's workforce. But Elon Musk sent out a tweet saying, consistent with President @real Donald Trump's instruction, all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week.
In just hours, up to 2 million federal workers could be terminated, with tech billionaire Elon Musk offering an ultimatum, telling them on X to list what they got done last week and warning that failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. An email was sent by the Office of Personnel Management at the direction of Musk, demanding workers reply with 5 bullet points by midnight tonight. President Trump saying today he applauds the move.
There was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy telling DOT employees to respond, defending the move on Fox News.
If you can't come up with 5 things that you did, maybe you shouldn't be employed here.
Leadership at the Treasury Department telling employees to comply and respond by OPM's deadline. But the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, writing, given the inherently sensitive and classified nature of our work, employees should not respond. Musk saying he's simply following instructions from President Trump, who encouraged him to get more aggressive. The U.S. Agency for International Development placing most of its staff worldwide on leave and firing at least 1,600 U.S.-based roles, despite prior assurances from the administration to preserve the agency's core life-saving medical services, plus food and shelter assistance. Serena Simioli says she got a termination letter Friday night.
The work that we do, it matters, and we won't know how much it matters until we're presented with another catastrophic disaster.
So shortly there'll be an email that comes in my inbox to ask me what did I do last week. Oh, and another sentence preceded that said failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. And there were 90.4 million views. This was sent out on February 22nd. Folks are chilling. Can't even enjoy their weekend because of this foolishness that's going out. Or this directive or this executive order that was sent out to the people. Listen, I kind of saw this in real time, and I'm not going to go into true details, but let me just say this. Stop playing with our people. It's not cool. It's not right. Now, let me be clear. You have those on the left and right that are saying, hey, yo, I didn't sign up for this. You voted for him. Oh, Kamala didn't have a plan. Oh, the Dems are short on this and they're just not strong on that. I'll ask again. I can't tell you who to vote for, but what I do have to ask you is when you vote, do you just hit the switch or do you find out what principles and what goals and what plans aligned with not only your now, but your future? Maybe a lot of voters didn't see this coming and did they listen to their constituents? Or is it just that they're going to fall in line with the White House? Is this another episode of Big Bank Take Little Bank and everybody just saying, hey, can't beat them, join them? We'll fall in line as an entity or a corporation outside of federal work or government work. We're just going to align with old Big T, old Don Teasy. But it's looking like most of these federal workers won't have jobs. Based on how things are going and based on the assignment and orders, it sounds like they're trying to make justification for nothing. Now, here's what was cited at a federal location. The doors, there was a padlock put on the doors. However, there were 3 young men allowed into the building. These guys had on backpacks. As it was said, some of them are college dropouts. Some of them were looking for work, but they were found somewhere. And these dudes were in the basement pulling data. I told you guys last time that now our files are accessed. And I'm not just talking about having access to anybody or qualified or background checked individuals. No, Elon Musk. And I'm just going to say it again. They're abusing these federal workers. A lot of good people, a lot of hardworking people, and it's something about state and federal jobs that holds a military type environment with. So these people, they get at it. And a lot of them don't like what they do. They love what they do. And a lot of them are passionate about what you do. So for those federal workers out there that this is affecting, you guys are in our thoughts. Keep up the good fight. Keep your head up. You guys, again, are in our thoughts. I know several who are in the federal workforce and government workforce. But coming from this leadership and this administration, there's no empathy. There's no compassion towards this ridiculous ask. You know, it makes one ask, what authority does Musk have to send out an ultimatum to these workers via Twitter? You know, this also reminds me, as I was doing some research, his father went on a podcast, disgusting podcast, there was nothing great about it. And Elon's father went on to say that former First Lady Michelle Obama is a man. And her husband, our former president of the United States, Barack Obama, is of the LGBTQAI plus community, and that he's into men. Why is it that whenever you see a healthy black couple, it's got to be something wrong with it or it's under extreme attack? People just have to throw their criticism in it. And to the podcast who was out there, y'all are whack. Shame on y'all for reaching out to this dude's father. I think you were doing it for clickbait. You may have thought that it was something brewing or something hot and fresh, but it was actually disgusting. And also what his father said about Elon when it came to that daggum salute that he did from his chest, disgusting. Let me do something here for a second, okay? It's all in the same vein of cancel culture, right? But I'm going to show you guys a picture. And I'll put this picture up now. And I want you to look at this picture. It shouldn't take long. But when you look at this picture, and if I were to tell you that a couple of people are on the chopping block, or one person is on the chopping block, who would you think that is? Yep, you got it. You got it. It ain't hard to tell. Nas said it. President Trump fires chairman of the JCS, which is known as the Joint Chief of Staffs. Now, let me tell you why this hit home for me. as I lived in D.C., I worked at the Pentagon. I worked for JCS. I was a part of the staff. I was a flag writer. But President Trump fires chairman of the JCS, the Joint Chief of Staffs. General C.Q. Brown, Charles Quentin Brown, a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated fraternity. Shout out to the mighty 06. But let's keep in mind, Mike Pence and Trump, were the same two cats that swore this dude in 2020. But now he's on the chopping block, or, as I understand, he was fired. Disgusting. And the other individual that you see in the picture, well, she may not be black, but she, meaning woman, you guessed it, Vice CNO. And this is who I worked for, not her in particular, but the position, the Vice Chief of Naval Operation Admiral Lisa Franchetti was removed late Friday. Now listen to these accomplishments that was just swiped from under her feet. She was the first woman CNO, Chief of Naval Operation. She was the first woman. She was also the first woman on the Joint Chief of Staff. First woman in JCS. So it seems like she was there long enough just to get a photo. And now she's out. Trump tweeted that Air Force Lieutenant General Raising Cane, Dan Cain, would lead the Pentagon. You want to take a guess at what's his background? How about I just show you a picture? Right? Like, I have to say this, right? And for those of you out there who actually watch my pod and you ghost it, right? Because I don't know who views, right? So you reserve that right. And I respect your privacy and opinion, right? I respect it. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. But for those of you who are watching me to fail, or for those of you that are watching me to see if I'm out here hating, no, I'm not a hater. I'm just calling out some facts, right? I don't hate anybody. But I tell you, this grinds my gears to the fullest that some things are happening in the form and fashion that they are. But here's what I have to say to some of those haters that are out there watching and don't have the courage to say anything to me directly. And I'll also say with what's going on right now with this current administration. May I have your attention, please? Can you make this a little less obvious? I mean, do you actually think people are stupid and blind to know that they are afforded and qualify for certain positions and don't get them simply because the color of their skin? Do you really think that people are that naive? Can you make this a little less obvious? I said it before and I'll say it again. Midterm elections, November the 3rd. 2026. I knew that rolling upon election period, and I do love politics, I must say. I was a campaign manager for none other than Kyle Jones, my cousin. And that was one experience that I had where I was very close and hands-on with politics and walked a huge portion of Northeast Atlanta, if you will, on a campaign team. Kind of his 1A, right? And shout out to Kyle. I love you for that, cuz. But I do love politics, and that's no exception. People know it. People know I don't shy away from it. I don't act like I know it all. I'm just telling you what I love. But when I saw these elections to come up in the campaign and what we were up against, President Joe Biden's demise, his weakening motor skills, right? As to how can this man run another term? And then the choices from the RNC was Ramaswamy, Santos, and a couple of others. And I'm like, man, we got a couple of options here, but Trump is on the ticket. But ain't no way he's going to get it with all these indictments, these 34 indictments. I said, there's no way this guy's going to get it. Oh, he was the RNC choice, the front runner. He was the front runner. And then all of a sudden it came down to the RNC and DNC. You got Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And Joe Biden pretty much just glitched out during the debate. There just was not enough motor skills for him to compete. So former President Donald Trump had him up against the ropes, and I guess one could say this was one of the best debates by him ever, or was it just the fact that he had no one to compete with? So the DNC comes back and put Madam VP Kamala Harris in the ticket, as it states in the Constitution. She was next up. And I said, this is going to be interesting. And then saw the amount of money that she raised in a short amount of time. And then looking at her credentials as Attorney General, working her way all the way up to the House, to the seat, now Madam VP. I said, oh, there's possibly a shot for a good runoff here or good competition at hand. But I think everyone could see with their own eyes that Donald Trump was probably leaning in to be the 47th president. And I'll be honest with you, since election, people have just been tight. I've gotten phone calls, I've spoken to people, and people are just in a uncharacteristic headspace. But one thing I will say is this, folks, voting matters. Voting matters. And it's not about your likeship or your kinship with someone. It's do their principles and plans align with your future? There are three forms of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. But I'll be honest, the way things are headed right now, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, we are headed towards a constitutional crisis and collapse. And I'll be honest, I'm concerned about this nation.